All right, strap in, everyone. Today, we're going deep on Tekken lore, and specifically, we're tackling Bryan Fury.
Oh, yeah, buckle up.
You guys sent in so much great material on him, backstory and personality and all his appearances, and, well, it's a lot.
It's wild.
Cyborgs, betrayal, just buckets of chaos. Should be fun.
You know, Bryan Fury really brings up this question
What's that?
about what happens to our humanity.
Yeah.
When we mess around with technology too much.
Yeah.
Because his whole deal, from corrupt cop in Hong Kong to like this engine of destruction, it's not a clean transition.
No. And right away, we see that tie-in with Lei Wulong.
Right.
Super cop Lei Wulong. The stuff you sent in, it mentions that Lei suspected Bryan of some shady stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe something with drug running, and that's what led to that big shootout.
Uh-huh.
Where Bryan died.
Well, supposedly.
Supposedly, right? But it's never really clear if Lei was the one who actually,
If he pulled the trigger.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's vague.
It's vague on purpose, and that vagueness is kind of important for everything that comes after.
It is. It sets the stage.
Yeah. And then enter Dr. Abel. This scientist, he's all about cybernetics, obsessed with being better than his rival, Dr. Bostanovich.
Oh, yeah, Boskanovich.
And he sees Bryan's death, quote unquote,
Opportunity knocks.
as a chance, right, to turn him into a cyborg, like a prototype for a whole army of cyborgs. Like,
Whoa, right.
okay, hold up.
Yeah.
An army of Bryan Furies.
I know.
That's nightmare fuel right there.
Total sci-fi horror movie.
Big time. But where does Bryan fit into all this? Is he just some, like, mindless puppet for Abel?
Well, here's where it gets good.
Okay.
Abel needs stuff from Boskanovich data to, like, perfect his cyborgs.
Right.
So Bryan, who was already kind of messed up morally,
Yeah.
now he's basically a weaponized thief. And this sends him to the King of Iron Fist Tournament 3.
Makes sense.
And did you notice in what you sent who his target is?
Oh, this is the Yoshimitsu connection, right.
Exactly, Yoshimitsu.
Yeah.
Because, of course, he's tied to Boskanovich.
Oh, right. Yoshimitsu, leader of the Manji clan, all about, like, honor and doing what's right.
Yep.
He's the total opposite of Bryan.
Polar opposites.
But their paths keep crossing.
Oh, they collide in spectacular fashion.
And in a big way.
Yeah.
And, thinking about Bryan's goals, he's super fixated on making his cyborg body perfect.
Yeah.
But is it just about power? Or is there, like, something deeper going on?
That's the thing. It almost feels like he's trying to, like, replace the stuff he lost.
Oh, interesting.
Humanity, his sense of self, all that seems to be fading as he becomes more machine.
Yeah. Okay, so let's jump ahead to Tekken 4. Bryan's body starts to, malfunction.
Yeah. Cyborg life ain't easy.
It's not all it's cracked up to be, apparently.
Nope.
So he goes crawling back to Dr. Abel, figures he'll get a tune-up.
Right.
But guess what? Abel's moved on. Cozying up to the Mishima Zaibatsu leaves Bryan high and dry.
Cold, right.
Talk about betrayal.
Serious betrayal.
Yeah.
And this is where we see Bryan become a pawn.
A pawn.
Yeah, in all these power games,
Mm.
Abel uses him, Heihachi Mishima uses him,
Right.
and all that just fuels his rage and resentment, which
Mhm.
kind of explains some things he does later.
Definitely a factor, for sure.
Yeah.
So revenge is on his mind, and he goes into the fourth tournament with a new goal to take over the Mishima Zaibatsu and make Abel fix him. But there's this one detail in the stuff you guys sent. It's wild. Yoshimitsu, who Bryan tried to kill before,
Yeah.
he finds Bryan messed up after the whole Zaibatsu thing fails.
Oh, man.
And what does Yoshimitsu do? He takes him to Boskanovich for health.
I know, right? Yoshimitsu is too good for this world.
Way too good. But come on, this is Bryan Fury. Gratitude isn't exactly his strong suit.
No, not really.
So how does he repay this life-saving kindness with a thank you card?
Not quite. What's really interesting is this act of kindness, it backfires hard.
I bet.
Boskanovich can't totally figure out Bryan's tech, so he puts in this perpetual power generator to keep him alive.
Huh.
Extends his life, but doesn't change his original body,
Yeah.
which Bryan does not like.
I bet not. This is Bryan Fury. So what happens?
Rampage.
Yeah.
Full-on rampage. Attacks Yoshimitsu, attacks Boskanovich, the whole Manji clan. It's like that kindness was somehow twisted, like it violated who he is.
Yeah.
It makes you think about how Bryan even sees the world at this point,
Yeah, this cements that whole rivalry with Yoshimitsu.
Oh, for sure. Intense stuff.
Now, hold on. You said perpetual generator. what does that even do? Like, how does that change what Bryan can do?
Oh, that's the game changer, right? No more body failing. He's got this endless energy source.
Wow.
Fueling all his destructive urges. And it doesn't mess with his cyborg body. It's on top of it. It's like the ultimate upgrade.
Yeah.
But at what cost, you know?
Yeah. So now he's a cyborg killing machine 24/7. What even motivates him anymore? Is it anything besides just wreaking havoc?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? He goes to war zones, hunts down strong opponents, enters more tournaments. It's like he's desperate for a purpose.
I see, yeah.
And if you look at what you sent in, you'll notice he keeps running into Yoshimitsu more and more.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost like he sees Yoshimitsu as the ultimate test, a reminder of what he's lost.
Right, right. Okay, so we've got this cyborg powerhouse driven by rage with this endless energy source. But who is Bryan Fury, the person? What was he like before all this?
Yeah.
You know he was a bad cop, but there's got to be more to it than that.
Right. We got to get inside his head. And what's weird is a lot of it comes from what's not there.
What do you mean?
He almost never talks. Mostly just like maniacal laughter or those creepy smirks.
Oh, yeah.
But that silence, it says a lot. It's like he's disconnected, no empathy, and honestly, it's chilling. The materials he sent in, they paint him as brutal, unfeeling, almost psychotic.
Uh-huh.
And it's more than just survival. You know, there's a real enjoyment he gets from hurting people.
Man, that's dark. It's like he's leaning into the monster everyone sees him as. And that laugh, every time you hear it in the games, it's bone-chilling. Yeah, totally bone-chilling. But didn't you say there's one game where he talks a bit more?
Oh, yeah, there is. Street Fighter X Tekken. It's a crossover fighting game, mixes those two worlds. And for some reason, Bryan's a lot chattier in that one.
Huh. That's got to be weird for fans who are used to him just, like, grunting and laughing.
It is, but it does give us a glimpse of, you know, what's going on in his head, his twisted sense of humor. It's almost like the developers wanted to show a different side to him. Like maybe there's still a little bit of human left under all the metal.
Right. Okay, so we've got his origin, his power grab, and his messed up personality. But he's not just in the main Tekken games, right? Didn't you say he pops up in spin-offs and even a movie?
Oh, there's a lot more to uncover, and it just gets weirder from here.
Yeah.
The cool thing is, each appearance adds a little something extra to Bryan. You see different sides of him, how he fights, how he acts.
So we're just scratching the surface then. This deep dive is going to be one for the record books, for the arcade cabinets. Hang on, everyone. We're going to dig up even more on the cyborg menace known as Bryan Fury.
It's interesting how Bryan's story, it's not just about him, you know.
Yeah, what do you mean?
He's like this catalyst, shaking things up,
Yeah.
changing other characters in big ways.
Right, like throwing a rock in a pond, those ripples spread out.
Exactly. And speaking of ripples, we got to talk about Yoshimitsu.
Oh, yeah, that relationship is intense.
It's like a mirror image, but twisted. Honor versus chaos, technology against tradition.
Yeah, good point.
That constant back and forth, it makes both characters so much more interesting.
Totally agree.
And remember, it all kicks off with that first fight in Tekken 3. Bryan's got to get that data from Bogdanovich.
Right.
And Yoshimitsu being all protective.
He's in the way.
Right in the way. It's almost poetic how their fates get tangled up from that point on.
It is, but if Bryan's all about power, why even bother with the tournament?
Good question.
Couldn't he just, like, storm Bogdanovich's lab and get what he wants?
Well, that's Bryan for you. He's not just some robot following orders. He loves chaos, pushing himself to the limit. And what better place than a tournament with a bunch of tough fighters?
Oh, I see.
It's like he gets off on testing himself against the best, even if it means waiting a little to get what he really wants.
So he's not just mindless. There's a plan, a strategy to his craziness.
There is. And like we said, that rivalry with Yoshimitsu, in Tekken 4, it takes a dark turn. Yoshimitsu, good guy that he is,
Tries to help.
takes Bryan to Bogdanovich,
Yeah.
and Bryan, well, you know Bryan,
Yeah, not exactly known for his warm and fuzzy
he
side.
repays that kindness with betrayal. Savage stuff.
Classic Bryan. And speaking of Tekken 4, didn't Bryan's look change in that game? Something about his design showing how bad he's getting.
Oh, yeah, totally. He looks rough, more scars, his eyes are red, like burning with rage. It's like his humanity is slipping away.
Oh, yeah. Being more machine, less man.
Exactly. And then there's that perpetual generator Bogdanovich puts in him. Does that change how he looks even more? Like wires and steam and stuff?
I'm picturing it now.
Actually, the generator doesn't really change how he looks on the outside. It's more about what it does to him inside. No more limits. He's got this endless energy.
Wow.
And what's really wild, it doesn't get rid of his old cyborg body. It's added on top. It's like the ultimate power-up. But man, the price he pays.
No kidding. But if he wanted his old body fixed, wouldn't he be mad that Bogdanovich did something different?
You'd think.
Yeah.
But it's almost like he embraces this new power, this crazy energy inside him.
Yeah.
If you look at the stuff you sent from Tekken 5 on, he's even more relentless, like obsessed with pushing his limits. It's as if the generator just made him even more destructive.
So it amplified everything that was already there.
Amplified it. And his rivalry with Yoshimitsu, that keeps going too. Their fights in Tekken 5, man, some of the most intense in the whole series.
Really?
Yeah, it's like they have this respect for each other now, grudgingly. They see the strength, the skill.
It's like this twisted dance. Two warriors locked in a battle that neither can win.
That's it. And in Tekken 6, it goes global. Bryan gets frustrated. Yoshimitsu keeps messing up his plans. So Bryan travels the world, finds war zones, causes chaos.
Wow.
It's like he's trying to top himself, create as much destruction as possible.
It's kind of sad, right? Even with unlimited power, he still needs conflict. Like he's trying to prove something.
Yeah, I get that feeling.
Maybe not to others, but to himself.
It goes back to that emptiness we talked about, the humanity that's gone. Like he's searching, but nothing can fill it.
Okay, so we've talked about Yoshimitsu, the Manji clan, but there's another big relationship in Bryan's story, Dr. Abel.
Oh, yeah. The guy who made him. It's messy. Betrayal, manipulation.
Right. Abel brought him back from the dead, made him a weapon.
And then ditched him when he wasn't useful anymore.
Old.
It's like a scientist playing God doesn't care about what happens. And Bryan, well, he doesn't take betrayal well.
So it's just anger and resentment between them.
Yeah, not exactly a healthy relationship. But it's fascinating how their paths keep crossing, how what one does affects the other.
It's like they're in this twisted dance, too.
Right. Always trying to outsmart each other.
So Dr. Abel's responsible for the monster Bryan's become.
In a way, yeah. But Bryan was already heading down a bad path before the whole cyborg thing. Abel just gave him the tools, the chance to go all in on being destructive.
So it's both, then, nature and nurture.
Both. It's complicated, all these things that made Bryan who he is, and that's what makes him interesting.
Okay, so we've got his origin, the power, the messed up personality, the rivalry, the relationship with Abel. But he's not just in the main Tekken games, right? The spin-offs you mentioned, the movie?
Oh, he's broken free, exploring other ways to cause chaos. And each one, Tekken Tag Tournament, that Street Fighter X Tekken game, they give you a different look at him.
Let's talk Tekken Tag Tournament. What's he doing in those?
Well, those are all about tag team battles.
Right.
And Bryan, unpredictable as he is, you see him teaming up with all sorts of characters.
Like who? It's hard to picture him playing nice with anyone.
Well, Tekken Tag Tournament 2. He's with King, with Jinpachi Mishima even.
Wait, who?
Yoshimitsu.
Hold on, he teams up with Yoshimitsu. That's crazy.
Total odd couple. It's like their love of fighting, it overrides everything else, at least for a while. And it's in these team-ups that you see a different Bryan. Still brutal, but there's a hint of, I don't know, teamwork. Respect for the other guy, even if you'd never admit it.
So even Bryan Fury can be a team player in his own messed up way.
Seems like it. And his ending in Tekken Tag Tournament 2, it's cool. He's trying out different fighting styles, taking bits and pieces from other characters.
That's interesting. It's like he's always evolving, looking for new ways to fight.
Right. Always learning. Shows how curious he is, how much he wants to master fighting.
Okay, what about Street Fighter X Tekken? You said he's chattier in that one.
Oh yeah, it's one of the few times you get to hear what he's thinking, why he does what he does, in his own words.
So less grunting, more talking.
Way more talking. Conversations, jokes, even taunting other characters.
Wow. That's a side of Bryan we haven't seen before.
It's different, for sure.
Yeah.
But it also shows he's not a mindless machine.
Yeah.
There's a brain in there, sick sense of humor, and he wants to make his mark on the world, even if it's through chaos.
Okay, so we've got his impact on Tekken, those key relationships, and all these appearances in other games. But what about how he looks? His design?
Yeah. It's iconic. You know him right away.
Yeah.
It really shows how brutal he is, that relentless force of nature.
So break it down for us. What stands out?
First off, the scars. He's covered in them. Shows all the violence he's been through, all the violence he's caused. Gives him this history, this dangerous aura.
It's like a map of all the pain and anger.
Exactly. And they're not just there to look cool. In some games, you see bullet wounds, injuries from when he was a cop, before he became a cyborg.
Oh, I see. Each scar tells a story.
They do. And then there's the hair. Buzz cut, silver.
Yeah, it's pretty distinctive.
Menacing. Like he doesn't have time for anything fancy, just wants to cause trouble.
And the color's changed over time, hasn't it?
It has. Early on, it was more brown, but later it becomes this silver gray.
Yeah, I think it adds to his age, the feeling that he's tired.
It does.
Right.
Like all that fighting, all that destruction, it's taken its toll.
Yeah.
It shows that he's not just a machine. There's a past there, depth.
Yeah.
Even if it's buried under all that rage and scar tissue.
And then there are the eyes. Glowing red, super intimidating.
Oh, yeah, those eyes. Like looking into his soul, or what's left of it. Cold rage. It's unsettling.
Like he's always watching, analyzing, looking for the next chance to hurt someone.
Yeah. And the clothes, usually pretty practical, military gear, tactical stuff.
Like he's always ready for a fight.
Exactly. Always prepared. And it's another reminder that he's not just a mindless thing. He's skilled, resourceful, knows how to use his surroundings to his advantage.
So they really thought about his design. It all means something.
Absolutely. It shows his personality, his story, how he fits into Tekken. He's a visual representation of everything that makes him such a compelling and scary character.
Okay, so we've got his design, his goals, his relationships. But what about his impact on the whole Tekken world? He's not really part of the Mishima family drama, but he's definitely left his mark.
Good point. He's not in those main power struggles, but what he does, it has consequences. Changes things for other characters, other events.
Like how his rivalry with Yoshimitsu, that's led to some big fights, even some weird team-ups.
Right. And his attacks on the Manji clan, that's had serious repercussions, created this cycle of revenge that keeps going.
Yeah. And we can't forget the King of Iron Fist tournaments. He's always a tough opponent, keeps everyone on their toes.
Total wild card. Can mess up any plan.
Yeah.
And that makes him dangerous, but also exciting to watch.
And he's not just in the games, he's become a fan favorite. Cosplays, fan art, even tattoos.
He's gone beyond the games. People love to hate him, but they can't help but be fascinated.
So what do you think his legacy is? How will Bryan Fury be remembered in Tekken?
I think, as one of the best, most interesting villains in fighting games. He's complex. He shows both the good and the bad of power.
He's like a warning that even in a world of martial arts and corporate schemes, sometimes the scariest enemy is the one who just wants to see everything burn.
That's a good way to put it. And he does it with that creepy smile, that laugh that sticks with you.
Okay, before we wrap up this Bryan Fury deep dive, I want to go back to something you said about him maybe changing for the better.
Oh, yeah. Can a bad guy really change? Classic question.
Exactly. Is there any chance Bryan can break free from all the violence and destruction? Or is he stuck that way forever?
Tough one. Based on what we've seen, it doesn't seem likely. He's so caught up in his anger, his need for power.
But there was a time when he was human, a cop, even if he was dirty. Isn't there a chance that some part of that is still there?
Maybe. Deep down, under the scars, the metal.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a spark of something else. But it would take something huge to bring that out.
Right.
Something that changes how he sees everything. Something that makes him face what he's done.
He'd have to face his own demons.
Exactly. Admit the pain he's caused.
Yeah.
And choose to change.
And that's a lot to ask for a guy like Bryan Fury.
It is. But hey, crazy stuff happens in Tekken. We've seen characters turn things around, find love in the weirdest places.
So maybe there's hope for him after all. Or maybe he's destined to be a warning that chasing power can ruin even the strongest will.
We'll have to see. But one thing's for sure, Bryan Fury's story isn't over yet.
Speaking of his story, let's talk about how he fights. We've touched on it, but the materials you sent in really break down his moves, his strategies, and he's not exactly easy to pick up and play, is he?
Nope. Bryan's all about what we call the punishment game. Mess up, try to attack him, he'll make you pay. He's aggressive, wants to keep you on the defensive.
So he's just a whirlwind of punches and kicks, no time for fancy footwork or defense.
Well, he's aggressive, but there's a method to his madness, you know? His moves have a rhythm, a flow, and you got to master that flow to play him right.
So what are some of his signature moves, the ones that make him Bryan Fury?
Oh, there's the mock breaker. It's iconic. This combo that can send you flying across the screen. And the jet upper, powerful uppercut, launches you into the air. Then he can really punish you.
Okay, yeah, I see why he's high risk, high reward. Got to be good to pull that off.
You do. You can't just button mash with him.
Yeah.
You got to understand his timing, how far his attacks reach, what his weaknesses are.
So what kind of player is Bryan good for?
Someone who likes to be on the attack, who wants to control the fight.
Okay, yeah.
He's also good for people who like mind games, keeping the other player guessing.
Because his moves are so unpredictable.
Exactly. Lots of options. And knowing when to use them can make all the difference.
So if you want to challenge a character that demands precision, aggression, Bryan Fury's your guy.
But be warned, he's not for beginners. He's a force of nature, a cyborg whirlwind. To master him, you got to be dedicated, got to embrace the chaos.
All right, we've covered his origins, his goals, how he affects the Tekken universe, his relationships, how he fights, even if he can change for the better. What else is there?
Well, we haven't talked about his appearances outside the games. He's popped up in other media, different versions of him, different stories.
Oh, right. You mentioned a movie, didn't you? That live-action Tekken movie from way back.
Yep. Not exactly an Oscar winner, but it's interesting to see what they did with Bryan.
So how does movie Bryan compare to game Bryan?
Some things are the same, for sure. He's still that brutal fighter, loves violence.
Okay, that's consistent.
But they changed some things about his backstory, his motivations.
Like what?
Well, in the movie, he's not a cyborg.
What?
He's just a super skilled, ruthless fighter who's been enhanced by some experiment.
So no perpetual generator, no glowing eyes?
Nope. But he does have this cool scar across his face. Makes him look even more intimidating.
I can picture it. And what about his personality? Is he still that quiet, menacing guy?
Not really. He talks a lot, which might be weird for fans used to him being mostly silent.
Huh. So they gave him a voice. But did they capture his essence?
Yeah.
That chaotic energy?
Kinda, yeah. He's still a force to be reckoned with, hurts anyone who gets in his way. But he's also, I don't know, more human. There are moments where he seems vulnerable, even a little bit sorry for what he's done.
Interesting. Sounds like they wanted to make him a more well-rounded character, even if it meant changing him a bit.
Right. And that's a fair choice. When you're taking a video game character and putting them in a movie, you got to make changes to make them work for a bigger audience.
So Moody Bryan is a mixed bag then. Not perfect, but not terrible.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. But if you're a fan, it's worth a watch. It's always cool to see different takes on Bryan Fury, and the movie definitely does its own thing.
So we've got the games, the spin-offs, the movie. Anything else out there with Bryan Fury?
Oh, outside the official stuff. Tons of fan-made things. Art, cosplay, even fan fiction that explores different parts of his character, his relationship.
Right. Fans are so creative, so passionate.
It's amazing. Shows how much of an impact Bryan Fury has had. He's more than just a character in a game. He's become this icon. Represents chaos, power. People are still fascinated by him.
Well, it looks like we've covered pretty much everything about Bryan Fury, from his beginnings to why he does what he does, his fighting style, how he's affected the Tekken universe, even if he can be redeemed.
We've gone deep, looked at his mind, his relationships, analyzed his moves, even debated if he's still human. It's been a wild ride.
And we're not quite done yet. Remember that new game we mentioned, Tekken 8? We saw a bit of Bryan in the trailers.
Oh, yeah. And he looks scary. There's this scene where his perpetual generator freaks out, and it's like it unleashes something even more primal in him.
Really? What does he look like? What's he do?
His eyes are glowing even brighter, almost like they're on fire, and his movements, they're more erratic, violent, like he's barely in control.
Whoa, that sounds intense. Think that generator malfunction is going to be a big deal in Tekken 8.
Hard to say for sure, but it definitely makes you wonder. Could it make him even more powerful? Or could it be his downfall?
I can't wait to see what happens. No matter what, I bet Bryan Fury's going to shake things up in Tekken 8. He doesn't fade into the background.
He's a force to be reckoned with. And that's what makes him so interesting. He embodies that fear. The fear of losing control, of becoming a monster.
But he also shows the appeal of power. The idea that maybe chaos isn't always a bad thing.
That's a good point. He makes us question what's good and evil, what's order and chaos.
So, as we wrap this up, what are your final thoughts on Bryan Fury? Why does he stand out, even in a world as crazy as Tekken?
For me, it's almost how complex he is. He's not just a bad guy. He shows our own worries about technology, about the potential for violence we all have.
He's a reminder that sometimes the toughest fights are the ones inside us.
And even with all the martial arts masters and conspiracies, the most dangerous enemy might be the one looking back at us from the mirror.
Well said. I think we've covered pretty much everything about Bryan Fury. It's been a wild ride, and I have a feeling his story is far from over.
Oh, definitely not. Tekken 8 is just the start of the next chapter. Who knows what he'll do next?
And for those of you listening, we want to hear from you. What makes Bryan Fury so fascinating to you? Share your theories, your favorite moments, anything.
And, like always, keep exploring, keep asking questions, keep diving deep into the things that interest you.
Until next time. It's kind of funny. We've been talking about Bryan for a while now.
Yeah.
And I keep thinking about how his look, how he's designed has changed over the years.
Oh, totally.
It's subtle, but it really reflects his journey. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like in the early games, Tekken 3.
Yeah.
You barely saw the cybernetics. He had that long coat, almost like he was trying to hide it, hold on to who he was before.
Like he was ashamed of it.
Yeah, exactly.
But as the games go on, he gets more and more mechanical, more intimidating.
More menacing. Yeah.
It's like he's losing his humanity a little more each time.
Shedding it,
Yeah.
more scars. You see more of the metal. His eyes glow brighter. It's all right there in the design.
And then that Tekken 8 trailer, that scene where his generator goes crazy.
Oh, I know.
That was on another level of creepy.
It was like it unlocked something even deeper, more primitive.
Yeah.
He's always been a force of nature, but now it's like he's not even in control anymore.
Speaking of control, do you think he'll be a pawn for someone else in Tekken 8, or will he be the one calling the shots,
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's always been unpredictable, but with his new power, who knows what he'll do? It's exciting.
And terrifying.
And terrifying at the same time.
Exactly. No matter what, I think Bryan's going to shake things up in Tekken 8. He's not going to sit on the sidelines.
He can't. It's not in his nature.
Not at all.
He's a force to be reckoned with, that's for sure.
And that's what makes him so interesting, right?
It is. He's like,
Yeah.
he represents that fear we all have of losing control.
Becoming something monstrous. But there's also that pull towards power.
Yeah, that idea that maybe chaos isn't always a bad thing.
Right. It's complicated.
It is. It makes us think about good and bad, about order and chaos. It's all mixed up.
So as we wrap this deep dive up, I gotta ask, what are your final thoughts on Bryan Fury? What makes him stand out, even in a world as crazy as Tekken?
For me, it's that complexity. He's not just a villain. He's like a reflection of our own anxieties about technology, about the potential for violence we all have inside.
He reminds us that sometimes the biggest fights are the ones we have with ourselves.
And that even in a world of martial arts masters and crazy conspiracies, the most dangerous enemy might be the one staring back at us in the mirror.
Well said. I think we've covered just about everything there is to cover on Bryan Fury. It's been wild.
It has.
And I have a feeling his story's not over yet.
Oh, definitely not.
Yeah.
Tekken 8 is just the beginning of the next chapter. Who knows what he'll do?
And for those of you listening, we want to hear from you. What makes Bryan Fury so fascinating to you? Share your theories, your favorite moments, anything.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
And as always, keep exploring, keep asking questions, keep diving deep into the worlds that fascinate you.
Absolutely.
Until next time.